Beneath the glow of 3 fading suns, a man who once saved countless dragons lies moments from death. And the only creature who can save him is a blind dragon willing to burn his own life away to do it. As ancient secrets stir and betrayal coils in the shadows, the fate of an entire sanctuary hangs on a single, impossible choice. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The sun dipped low over Tri-Sun Harbor, painting the sanctuary in shades of warm copper and soft gold. The air was calm, filled with the quiet hum of machines and the distant calls of dragons gliding through the high thermals. Orion Hale walked slowly along the observation platform, his boots making soft taps on the steel deck. For years, he had built this place into a home for wounded and lost dragons. A safe world carved from wild stone and gentle hope. He had carried their weight, their fear, and their trust on his shoulders for decades. He paused near the edge of the platform, resting his hands on the cool rail. For a moment, he let himself breathe, simply watching the vast sanctuary below. Dragons rested in sunlit gardens, their scales flashing like living jewels. It should have been peaceful. Yet a faint ache stirred in his chest, small as a whisper. It felt like the tired pull of age, like the body quietly asking for rest. He told himself it was nothing, but Sable knew better. The blind copper dragon lay coiled nearby, his head resting on his front claws. His scales glimmered softly, like banked embers in fading light. Though he could not see Orion, he always knew where he was. He caught scents, vibrations, the fine tremors of air that marked each step. Now, his nostrils flared. A strange metallic note cut through the warm evening air. It was sharp, unnatural, and wrong. Sable rose, tail twitching. Orion turned, smiling faintly. "You're awake," he said, reaching out a hand in habit. Sable pressed his head into the familiar touch, but what he felt made his scales ripple in alarm. Beneath the calm surface of Orion's skin, there was a tremor. Not the shiver of cold, not the shake of exhaustion, but something deeper. Something breaking. Sable made a low sound that was not quite a growl and not quite a plea. A tone he had never used before. The sound carried across the platform like a signal. Mara Quinn, the operations chief, looked up from a nearby console. Her sharp eyes narrowed and her steps quickened. Juna Park, the biotech specialist, followed close behind, her tablet flashing with alert symbols. Even Warden Corin appeared from the lower deck, his security gear clinking as he ran. "What is it?" Mara called, voice steady but clipped. Orion tried to wave her off. "I'm fine," he said, forcing a smile, but his words slurred on the edges. The datapad in his hands slipped, hitting the deck with a harsh clang, and his body swayed like a tree cut too deeply at the base. The sky spun. Then he collapsed. Sable lunged forward with a sudden surge of strength. He slid under Orion's falling body and caught him before he struck the ground. The dragon lowered him gently, curling protectively around him. His sightless eyes were wide with terror. Mara dropped to her knees at Orion's side, pulling a small medical kit from her belt. "Medical team to the high platform," she said into her wrist mic. Her voice was calm, but iron hard. Emergency priority. Juna's scanner beeped in fast bursts. Pulse is weak, she said. Breath is shallow. Something's in his system. Wait, this pattern? It's a nerve toxin. How is that possible? Corin demanded. This is a secured zone. This type hasn't been seen in decades. Juna replied, quietly. It's engineered to leave no trace after death. Whoever did this wanted him gone without questions. Sable pressed his snout gently to Orion's chest, breathing in deeply. Beneath the fading heartbeat, he caught a hidden echo, a cold, sharp scent like rusted metal and ash. He remembered it from long ago, from hearing humans speak of a scientist who had vanished in disgrace. Marin Voss. The memory stirred a deep growl inside him. The medics arrived, moving quickly and precisely. They lifted Orion onto a stretcher lined with pale fabric, attaching monitors and feeding thin tubes into his arms. Their faces were careful masks, but their eyes flickered with worry. Mara stood, fists clenched. How did this happen under our watch? She whispered. Sable stayed close, pressing his warm body against the stretcher as they moved. His tail brushed lightly along the floor, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. The sanctuary had always been safe, but now something unseen had entered, carrying old hatred hidden inside new shadows. As they hurried Orion toward the medical wing, the last light faded from the sky. The sanctuary seemed to hold its breath. Sable walked beside the stretcher, blind eyes fixed forward, already choosing what he would do if hope slipped from their hands. The night had grown quiet around the sanctuary, but it was not the quiet of peace. It was the quiet that comes when hope holds its breath. Inside the medical wing, bright lights washed the room in sharp white. Orion lay still on a wide bed, his chest rising in shallow, uneven pulls. The machines around him hummed in soft warning tones. Sable sat near the doorway, his copper scales dimmed to a dull, burnished brown. He had not moved since the medics placed Orion here. He had listened to the soft words of worry, the clipped reports, the whispered fear that there might not be enough time. Every minute stretched longer, heavy as stone. Mara Quinn stood with arms crossed, her jaw tight. We slowed the toxin, Juna Park reported softly, but it's designed to adapt. If we can't break it down, it will reach his heart by morning. Then find a way, Mara said. Her voice was low and steady, but her eyes betrayed the fear behind her calm. Sable raised his head. He did not understand the machines or their data, but he understood Orion. He understood the rhythm of his breathing, the subtle patterns of his heartbeat, and the strange wrongness that clung to him now like cold mist. Sable stepped closer. His claws tapped softly against the floor. Be careful, Juna warned, but Sable ignored her. He placed his snout gently against Orion's chest and breathed in deeply. A shiver passed through him. The poison's echo was sharp and metallic, but he sensed something else, something brittle that could be broken. Sable lifted his head and opened his jaws. The sound that left him was not a roar. It was low and clear, like a single note of stone struck by wind. The air in the room trembled. What is he doing? Juna whispered. Outside, in the vast sanctuary grounds, dragons stirred. They lifted their heads from their nests and feeding pools. They paused in mid-step, listening to something only they could hear. Solara was the first to arrive. Her scales glimmered pale as moonlit water, and she moved with the grace of flowing tides. She slipped into the medical wing and settled beside Sable without a word. Her glowing body pressed gently against his side. Then came the green twins from the wetland enclosure, their eyes bright with concern. They took places on either side of the doorway, humming softly. One by one, more dragons appeared. Some were young and nervous, others old with wings scarred by long-forgotten storms. Wild dragons glided down from the cliffs beyond the sanctuary walls. They landed silently and walked through the open doors, answering Sable's call. Soon they formed a ring around the medical bed, their bodies filling the room with a presence older than memory. They touched wingtip to wingtip, paw to paw, creating a living chain. Juna's scanner came alive with sharp green peaks. "This is impossible," she breathed. "Their heart rhythms are syncing. No, they're amplifying each other. They're building a field." "A field to do what?" Mara asked. "To save him," Juna said. Sable lowered his head over Orion. A soft shimmer rose from his mouth, like heat over stone. Solara joined him, releasing a pale glow that danced across Sable's copper scales. Then the rest of the dragons added their breath, each one sending thin streams of colored mist into the air. The room filled with a quiet vibration that passed through every wall, every bone, every heartbeat. Mara felt the air pressed gently against her chest, not with weight, but with warmth. She could almost hear words in the vibration, though no language shaped them. The toxin inside Orion's blood began to shift. Its sharp edges softened. Its deadly fragments broke apart, melting under the combined energy flowing from the dragons. But every second cost Sable strength. His body trembled with effort. His once bright scales dulled like old coins. His wings sagged toward the floor. Solara leaned harder against him, sharing her glow to keep him standing. The others pressed closer, their joined forms holding him upright. "His readings are changing," Juna whispered. "The poison structure is collapsing. They're doing it. They're actually doing it." Mara's shoulders sagged with relief, but her gaze stayed locked on Sable. "Then we don't let him fall," she said quietly. The dragon's circle tightened. The shimmer grew brighter, filling the room with a gentle golden haze. Orion's chest rose a little higher, his breathing steadier. The harsh alarms on the monitors faded to soft tones. Color returned slowly to his pale skin. After long minutes, Sable stepped back. He swayed, his legs shaking. Solara caught him with H, lowering him gently to the floor. The glow around them faded, leaving the room still and quiet. Orion's eyelids fluttered. His gaze found Sable, blurred but sure. His lips moved, voice faint but steady. "You stayed," he whispered. Sable lowered his head until it touched Orion's hand. He gave a soft hum that meant only one thing: "I choose you." The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the machines. The dragons slowly stepped away from the circle, their eyes watchful, their bodies calm. Outside, the night breeze moved through the sanctuary, carrying away the sharp scent of poison and leaving only the clean breath of life. The sanctuary slept beneath a blanket of calm, but Sable did not. His body was still weak, his copper scales dulled from the effort of saving Orion's life. Yet something restless stirred inside him, sharper than pain. The night air carried a thin, bitter taste, almost hidden under the usual scents of salt and grass. It was faint. Then, something. Poof, something. Out and left it dealing with me. But Sable knew wrongness when it brushed against him. Solara glided down from the upper cliffs, her pale glow soft against the darkness. She landed beside Sable without speaking, only tilting her head as if asking a silent question. Sable answered with a quiet huff, then turned toward the distant hum of the water treatment plant. They moved through the silent grounds like shadows. The lamps along the paths flickered in the cold wind, casting long, trembling shapes on the walls. Sable's paws pressed softly into the dirt. His blind eyes stayed fixed forward. The plant stood at the edge of the sanctuary, its metal towers glinting faintly under the moons. Pipes stretched out like silver veins, carrying clean water to every pen and shelter. Tonight, that clean flow felt threatened. Sable caught it in the air. A chemical bite, sweet and sour at once. Moved ahead, light fading to keep them hidden. They reached an old service door, tucked behind thick ivy. It was supposed to be sealed, yet the hinges had been oiled recently. Sable pushed gently with his shoulder. The door creaked open. Cool air swept out, carrying a smell of rust, stone, and something new, something too clean, like burned sugar. Sable's claws scraped against the steps as they descended into the tunnels. The passage twisted deep below the sanctuary. Old mining lights flickered along the walls, their glow faint and sickly. The deeper they went, the stronger the strange scent became. They followed it like a trail until faint voices echoed from ahead. Sable stopped, tilting his head. Solara crouched low. They crept closer. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber carved from black rock. Bright flood lamps glared down on rows of machinery and crates. People in clean suits moved between the machines, their masks hiding their faces. In the center stood a tall container marked with warning symbols. Its metal surface gleamed with cold light. A woman stood before it, silver streaks in her dark hair and cold focus in her eyes. She spoke to the workers with clipped certainty. "Project Cleaver is ready," she said. "Release it into the water supply tomorrow at dawn. It will not kill them, it will change them. Forced aggression will make the public see dragons as dangerous. Once fear takes root, the council will order their destruction. No more hesitation, no more sentiment." Sable froze. The words struck him like stones. Project Cleaver would not just harm the dragons, it would twist them, turn their gentle trust into rage. Everything they had built here would be torn apart. The woman turned slightly, and Sable caught her scent. Beneath the sharp tang of chemicals was something older, disinfectant, scorched metal, and bitterness. He remembered it from long ago. Marin Voss. Solera trembled beside him. Sable stepped forward, his claws clicking against the stone. Heads turned. Shouts rose. "A dragon!" Someone cry. Sable opened his eyes a fraction. A faint sound rumbled from his chest. The same sound he had made when choosing Orion long ago. "I choose this." The air in the tunnel hung still after the chaos. The machines had gone silent, the flood lamps buzzing softly in the aftermath. Sable lay crumpled near the shattered container. His copper scales burned black in places, his breath coming in shallow rasps. Orion knelt beside him, one hand pressed to the dragon's chest, feeling each faint rise and fall as if counting hope itself. Around them, the other dragons stood in a protective half-circle, their eyes fixed on Sable. Solara leaned close, her pale glow dimmed but steady, guarding him with quiet resolve. Even the humans who had followed Voss stood frozen, their weapons lowered, their faces caught between fear and awe. Mara Quinn arrived with reinforcements, her boots echoing on the stone. She stopped short at the sight. "What happened?" she whispered. "He saved them." "Stop," Orion said, not looking up. "He saved all of them." Voss stood apart from the others, her shoulders rigid. For years, her voice had carried only cold certainty, but now it wavered like cracked glass. "That chemical was irreversible," she said quietly. "It was designed to change them forever. He should be dead." "He should," Juna replied, her scanner trembling in her hands. "But he isn't, because he chose to give everything." Sable stirred faintly at the sound of their voices. His eyes opened a thin sliver, clouded and tired. Orion bent low, his voice breaking. "Don't go. Stay with me. You've stayed through everything. Don't stop now." The dragon gave a faint hum. It carried no words, yet it said what words never could. "I will try." But his body was breaking. The damage ran deeper than the burns on his scales. He had poured his strength, his life force, into cleansing the poison. No known treatment could repair that. Mara's voice cut the stillness. "We need a lab." "Proper equipment, full support. The only lab strong enough is Voss's old one," Juna said, glancing toward her. All eyes turned to the scientist. Voss's lips pressed tight, as if fighting some silent war inside herself. "It will take clearance, supplies, and time," she said. "And even then, I cannot promise success." "Then don't promise," Orion said. "Just try." They moved as one. The dragons formed a living stretcher, their bodies weaving together so Sable could rest across their broad backs. Solara stayed at his side, her glow guiding the way through the dark tunnels. Above ground, transport teams waited. Lights flashed, engines hummed. They carried Sable to the old government facility on the far ridge, once sealed, now opened out of desperation. Inside the lab, clean lights flickered on. Machines woke with low hums, their arms poised like quiet sentries. Voss stood at the central station, her hands moving with the sharpness of old skill. Juna joined her, feeding data and readings as fast as the scanners could gather them. Orion stayed beside Sable, resting one hand on the dragon's scorched head. Hours blurred. Formulas ran across glowing screens. Compounds mixed, hissed, cooled. Dragons sang softly in the background, their voices low and steady, anchoring Sable to life while the humans fought to rebuild him. Finally, Voss stepped back from the bench, Sweat beaded her brow. "This might work," she said, holding a vial of pale gold fluid. "But it's never been tested. If it fails, it could—" She stopped, glancing at Sable. "Do it," Orion said. "It could kill him," she warned. Sable opened his eyes slightly. A rough whisper rose from him, shaped like a word. "Trust." The treatment began. The golden fluid coursed into Sable's veins. His body jerked, a low roar tearing from his chest, shaking the walls. Orion held him steady, murmuring gently, though his own hands trembled. The dragons pressed close. Dot dot dot, forming a ring, their hums rising in harmony. Hours passed, like years. Sable's roars faded to soft whimpers. His scales smoked, then cooled. At last he lay still, breathing faintly. Silence filled the lab. "Is it done?" Mara asked. Voss checked the readings twice, her voice unsteady. "The damage is reversed, but the energy he spent, it won't return. He will live, but he will be weaker, slower. He may never fly again." Orion exhaled, tears bright in his eyes. "He'll live. That's all that matters." As if in answer, Sable stirred. His blind eyes opened, soft and calm. A quiet word left him, clear for the first time. "Orion." The name hung in the air like light breaking through darkness. Orion bowed his head. Laughter and grief tangled in his voice. "Yes," he whispered. "I'm here." Months passed. The sanctuary changed. Voss stayed, her sharpness tempered into purpose. Her research began proving what Orion had known from the start, that dragons were more than instincts. They were memory, emotion, and choice. Sable became their living proof. Though slower now, he moved through the sanctuary like steady firelight, guiding rescued dragons, comforting the fearful, teaching the young to trust. One day, as Orion watched him from the platform, Mara spoke softly. "How did you know? When he was small and broken. How did you know he was worth saving?" Orion smiled faintly. "Because worth isn't measured in strength," he said. "It's measured in what we choose to give." Sable turned at the sound of his name, finding Orion as he always did. He walked slowly across the grass and rested his head gently against Orion's chest. "And what we choose," Orion murmured, running a hand over the scarred scales, "we become." Sable gave a soft hum, and in that quiet sound was everything. Trust, love, and the promise that choosing had always been enough.